Yeah.
And so then they whipped us over to the West Coast, put us on the Hollywood Palace, the Dick Van Dyke Show, and God knows what else.
Yeah.
And the rest was history.
Yeah, now, I was going to ask you about that. In fact, why don't we let our listeners just hear, I have just a little snippet from some of your TV appearances here on my computer, so let's just listen to that for a second, and then we'll talk a little bit about it.
We'd like to do a song now for two very good friends of ours who risked life and limb by letting us stay in their lovely home.
The song is one that was recorded by Chad and Jeremy, who are friends of ours back in England. They're very close to us, you might say. So for Rob and Laura Petrie of New Rochelle, New York, here is No Other Baby But You.
America must have faith that the law will recover the voices of Chad and Jeremy.
How come I've never heard of you?
Who has? We're nobody so far.
But you've got so much talent.
Yes.
And rhythm.
Yes.
And what's more, you're kind of cute.
And now, here are your hosts for this week's Hullabaloo, Chad and Jeremy.
Just a little snippet there of some of your TV appearances, Dick Van Dyke, Batman, The Patty Duke Show. But I've got to ask, you know, there was a number of bands over here at the time. How did you wind up on all these sitcoms and musical variety shows? A good manager?
No, it was certainly not good management, God forbid. No, it was because they found out we'd just come from drama school. So that made a huge difference.
Okay.
Yeah. We could string sentences together, and they had, you know, they were convincing.
There was a thing you had to be. I mean, it's interesting. If you look back at the early Beatles stuff now, it's extraordinary how many variety shows they were on. I mean, variety was sort of very closely aligned with popular music at the time. It was only later that it sort of splits off, and there were all these sort of, you know, you'd come on after the juggling act and before the Seals, you know what I mean? And so you do a song, and it's all changed now. It's another world. But we were something that everybody wanted to be, and that was aspired to be, which is something called the all-round entertainer. So we had that skill, and I mean, if you look back now, Brian Epstein was trying to make the early Beatles into all-round entertainers, and they bowed, you know, at the end of the show, and they were very polite and all that stuff, and far cry from the cabin.
Yeah, when you look at the Hullabaloo that we hosted, I was amazed after all this time to realize just what we managed to do after about 3 days of rehearsal. We were dancing, we were singing, we were all over the flipping place. I mean, doing sketches. I mean, it was fun in retrospect. I think it's a shame that every aspect of showbiz now is so pigeonholed.
Segmented,
you know what I mean? And radio is one of the worst offenders.
Oh, of course, yeah, absolutely.
And I congratulate you to have a program where you can actually do what you feel like doing.